Welcome back to the Lingerie Society YouTube channel. We have a new pattern to share with you today. It's the Evie bra. It's a wired bra and it has a two-part cup with a center cup seam. The bridge and the cradle is all in one and it has a slightly longer line look. It's a really simple pattern to make up, so it's great as a starter, but it's also something that your more experienced bra maker could take the initial idea with and run and create any number of things with. Really easy to modify this pattern to create, say, a dart bra or a tulip cup, things that we'll cover later on down the track, but today let's start with just making the Evie. I have this really beautiful new kit to work with today. We've been experimenting with some dyes and getting these really lovely vivid colors. So we've got this gorgeous sort of hot pink with this chartreuse green. Such a beautiful contrast. So these are the materials that I'm going to use to make today. I've got my power mesh for my back band. I'm going to use the lace for the cradle and the cups and line it with my bra tulle. Then I've got my underwire casing, my wide picot for the bottom band, my strapping, and my narrow picot, which is for the underarm here. Then I've got my hook and eye, my rings and sliders, and my charm. So first step is to cut out. I have my pattern here that I have modified ever so slightly. I of course made a fit bra first, and you can check out our free class on how to make a fit bra. That's available also on our channel. Whenever you're making a new pattern, I always recommend to make a fit bra. So the only alteration that I needed to make was to take a small dart out of the cup at the side here. That's all I needed to do. Everything else was great for me. I had a lot of ladies trial this recently at our Lingerie Society sewing retreat, and they all only needed minor adjustments. So I'm hoping that will be the case for you too. But of course, everybody's body is different. So make a fit bra, make the adjustments that you need to make, and then we will get sewing. So I'm going to cut out and I will come back to you with the first step of construction. Okay, so I've cut out all my pieces, and our first step is to sew the center cup seam. So you'll notice on your pattern that you have a notch on your side cup and your center cup. So they line up, match your notches, and sew with a 6mm seam. So I've got my lining and my outer. I just pop a pin in to keep them in the right orientation and so that I sew the right seam, because bra cups can be confusing. It's very easy to get things up the wrong way or having two left cups or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew my center cup seams in both my outer and my lining with a 6mm seam allowance in a straight stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to trim back my seam allowance. You don't have to do this if you're working with a non-sheer fabric, but with these shears it just looks nicer not to have all that bulk sitting inside the cup. So I'm just trimming that back to about 2 or 3mm. And then I'm going to press my seams. We have these great new little inventions that are available on the website. As you can see, the cup just sits nicely over that curve. Makes it really easy for pressing. now that that's done, we can attach our lining to our cups at the top. So I've chosen not to use the scallop on this lace because it was quite big and I wouldn't have had enough to get the placement right. So I'm using the lace without the scallop. So just line up your pieces the way they're going to go. I'm loving that chartreuse under the pink. You know what, it's best to trim all these threads off because I don't know how many times I've gotten to the end and there's been a pesky thread inside where I can't get to anymore because it's all closed up. So trim them off. Okay, so what we want to do is sew that top of the cup. So we're going to flip the lining to the outside and sew along that top seam along here. Okay, and once you've done that, you can again trim it away and press, and you will have beautifully finished cups. Okay, now we've got our cups assembled. We're going to work on the bridge. So the first step we're going to do here is to sew this seam across the top of the bridge. And we're going to do in a similar method to what we did with the cups. We'll sew the seam, trim it, and then flip to the inside and press. So let's do that step. Okay, so now it's time to attach the back. And we're going to do a burrito method here so that our seams are enclosed. So what you do is lay the back on top of the front, right sides together. And then we bring the lining around to the back. And when we stitch that, that will give us a nice enclosed seam. So let's do it again on the other side. Right sides together. Then the back flips around to meet the lining. Okay, and we will stitch, trim, and press that as well. Okay, so you can see there that we've got lovely enclosed side seams, and we are ready to set our cups in. So our cups go in like so, and we're going to stitch them in from the center. So that means when you're stitching one, you will have the cup on the top, and when you're stitching the other, you will have the cup on the bottom. But we want that center point to be nice and neat because that's going to be the focal point. So we always start at the center. So stitch your cups in with your 6mm seam allowance and a straight stitch, and then it will be time to add our casing. Okay, we have our cups in and it's starting to look like a bra. So now we're going to stitch our casing in. Now the casing, couple of points. So we're going to flip our seam allowance out like that. The casing goes fluffy side up, and we'll stitch close to this edge first. Now we want to leave about a 2cm piece here unstitched, because when we stitch our elastic along here, the elastic will encase this end piece. So we want to leave a little bit unstitched, about 2 centimeters, and stitch all the way around. And then once we've done that, we can stitch the other side to stitch it down. So this casing goes down onto the bridge. If you have a partial band, sometimes the casing is stitched up into the cup, but in this case we're stitching it down into the bridge. So we'll sew our first pass, remembering to leave our little gap here, and then sew our second pass, and repeat that for both cups. Okay, so we've got our underwire casing sewn in now. So we're going to put the elastic on the bottom band now. I've got this nice wide 20mm elastic. The seam allowance is marked at 6mm on the pattern, but you've obviously got quite a lot of space there, so you can use whatever width elastic you want on the bottom. You could use a 15mm, 20, 25mm, whatever you like. So how we stitch that on is fluffy side up with the picot facing up towards the top of the bra. Line up your picot, the edge of your picot with the edge of your bra, and then we're going to stitch with a standard zigzag close to this edge all the way along. You don't need to pull the elastic because you've got stretch in your band. You don't want to make it tighter. Sometimes you may need to pull a little bit to get round this curve, but apart from that, we're just going to sew it on straight. Okay, so line it up, and with just a standard zigzag, we're going to sew along the edge. Once we've done that, we will flip it to the inside and stitch again the second pass with a triple stitch zigzag. Again, no stretching, just flat. And then we will end up with our nice picot edge. Okay, now we've got our elastic stitched on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and pop my wires in. You just open up your channeling. Sometimes easier said than done. And pop them in. There we go. Now I found with this pattern, I made a 12 double D, but I went down to a 12D in the wires. And these are our Australian size underwires. There's a size chart when you purchase the pattern, so you can, I think the best way to choose an underwire is to compare one that you've got that you like, that fits well, with the size chart, because they're all different. Okay, so now we've got our underwires in. We want to stitch our narrow picot to this underarm edge. So I've got a, what's that, 10 or 12mm. Again, the seam allowance on the pattern's marked at 6mm, but you can use, you've got plenty of space there. You can use a wider elastic. I always use a 10 or a 12mm. There, you could use a 6mm, depending on what size you're making and how much support you need. So we're going to do the same as we did for the bottom band. We're going to sew the first pass like so, and then flip it to the inside. We're going to sew the first pass with a straight stitch, and then the second pass with a regular zigzag. So this is where leaving this little section unstitched comes into play. So what we want to do is trim back that casing so that it's going to sit underneath that elastic. Like so, so that when that's stitched down, that encases that all nice and neatly. So same thing on this side, we'll just trim a little bit off. And we'll go ahead and stitch that. One other note just on that, you'll need to leave about a 5 centimeter overhang of the elastic here. That's where our ring will attach. So we'll slide our ring on there and stitch that down, and that's how our strap is going to attach. So when you're stitching your elastic on here, just leave a little 5 centimeter overhang. Okay, so now we're going to thread our straps through the ring, fluffy side up from the back to the front, then back through the slider, and that creates your strap. So again, fluffy side up from the back to the front, then through your slider, creating your adjustable strap. Okay, so then the next step is to stitch those straps to the back. And one of the things you'll notice about this pattern, it's got a very wide back band. Now that is so that you can make that as wide as you want to. So in this case, I'm using a 3-hook bra back. So I'm going to cut this curve to suit the size of my bra back. If I was using a 2-hook bra back, for example, I would lay that on there and cut it to fit that size. Just means that you can really adapt it to the supplies that you're using. You don't have to source a specific size bra back. You can just use whatever you want to use. Some people like a 2-hook, some people like a 3-hook. You could even use a 4-hook on this one. So I am going to mark where I want to cut. And you could mark this, but I'm just going to go freestyle. Let's just check. Yep. And then I want to do the same the other side. I want it to match, so I just lay that on there and follow the curve that I've cut. Okay. So then what we do is we take our strap elastic and zigzag stitch that down to the curve. This strapping is on the wider side, so I'm going to stitch 2 rows. If you had a narrow strapping, you could just stitch down the center, but I'm going to stitch 2 rows, one either side of my strapping. So we'll do that both sides, and then we just need to sew our back on. Okay, so now just the finishing touches. So I'm going to pin my bra back in place. I want to stitch a little label in there. These are our new label designs. I'm a bit in love with them. What do we think? I made a bra. That's pretty cute. This bespoke one goes nicely too. I think I'm going to go with I made a bra. So I think that's what we all exclaimed the first time we actually made a bra. I made a bra. So we're going to stitch that down. That pin's not very sharp. Stitch that down again with our small zigzag. I always have to visually put this bit in place because I've sewn it on so many times the wrong way up. Can be hard to stitch those hooks in place. You've just got to be careful not to sew over them. Okay, so we're going to stitch all that down, and then we will just have to put our charm. I'm going to make a little bow out of something. I'll make a bow out of some of the bra tulle to bring that chartreuse up to here. So I will stitch that down and we can put our finishing touches on. Okay, I've just sewn a little bow made out of some of the leftover bra tulle and my charm on, and we are done. Quick, easy, wired bra, the Evie bra. So there she is, Evie. I hope you guys enjoyed that sew along and found my tips helpful. The pattern is available on our website. I will pop the link below, as well as the link to this kit if you would like to make one of your own. We also have a huge array of other wired bra kits online, so there is lots to choose from. The Evie bra.